Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between training and on-field performance.
I'm Brett Hart, owner of Hitman Performance.
And I'm Dan Labadia, the owner of Jack Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show. All right, everyone, welcome back to this episode of The Gap. Today we have a very special guest. They're all special, and this is actually a personal one because he's been my friend for the last, 12 years?
Probably around there, yeah.
Yeah, and it was cool to see his upcoming. I mean, he was my athlete for quite some time, seeing his transformation athletically, and now in the professional sphere, going more so with the physical therapy, strength conditioning side of things. I'll let you take the spin on that, but Mike Delaney, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's about time.
It is about time. Mike, you are I was just saying this off air, you were one of my closest friends that I feel like I don't really know much about. And I know a lot of people might have friends like that. And the audience definitely doesn't know who you are because we haven't posted on social media yet, but we'll get there. Give us a little bit of background, origin story of who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
So Mike Delaney. Right now I'm physical therapy school, background in sports orthopedics, and then obviously your athlete playing lacrosse for the Pole national team. Our origin story is kind of funny because we grew up going to the same preschool, middle school, elementary school, everything like that. And
From preschool to senior year of high school.
literally, like, all together.
Yep.
We've been together forever. But we also didn't really get super close until, probably college is when we got really, really close. Because I remember we were at the gym training, and I was doing, like, cleans, jerks, like snatching, overhead pressing. It was like 5 days a week. And I was like, man, my shoulder's hurting. And one day Brett looks at me, he was like, what are you doing, man? And I was like, you're right. What am I doing? He was like, let me get in here. Let me start programming for you. And like that was like your summer too, when you really started going crazy, blowing up. But it was just funny because like I would always see you at like our old training facilities, and you'd be warming up for like 40 minutes. And I'm like, man, this guy got to start lifting. And but then like we obviously kind of coached like alongside each other. Like I'm put coaching in quotes because like I was just like watching like little kids run around like doing cone drills with them.
Coach is a very hard like asterisk in the quotations. Coach,
we were just helping anything out. We were just kind of showing up, just making sure kids didn't jump off the boxes and hurt themselves.
Anything for that free membership training there.
Honestly, it was worth it though. I'll take that.
I do remember that story. I mean, that was right around the time where I was stopping baseball, going all in on coaching, and then really got some fortunate opportunities with some teams there around COVID time and having to work with those restrictions. But I always thought that was funny seeing you do every Olympic lift variation 5 times in a workout every day.
Dude, and that was like an important time for me too, because at that point I was trying out for the pole and lacrosse team, and like that was kind of when I had woke up too, and I was like, what am I doing? Like this training is just absolutely tapped. Like it's not what I need right now. And then that was also like you had a lot of high level athletes too, like even in the baseball scene with like Luke and a couple others. And we started doing ISOs, and then we started like getting real crazy because your numbers that you had from those athletes that year, ridiculous. Like that was like everybody's prime. That's what, like, I'm serious. I'm serious. Prime, like that was the most fun time training too, because it was like a mixture of having fun, like diving deep into like the mental side of training too, like with like those long ISOs. Like it wasn't even like a physical challenge. It was more of like how much you could dig into your brain and pull out of, which I thought was really cool. And I'd never really been exposed to that sort of training until then. And we saw crazy results. And then obviously that's what kind of got you started, really.
It got me started. It got me fired. It got me to another job. It got me down a path of going through my own training and own development. But that was right around the time Austin Yoakum started getting big.
Yep. Legend.
And following that, legend. Yep. Shout out Austin Yoakum. And I always thought that was hilarious that the isometrics were like what brought the community together. Because before it was a lot of groups of just individuals coming in to train, because it was that semi-private model where people have their own programs. They would come in, they would do their own thing. Not much community aspect. But then as soon as you input something that is extremely difficult and extremely challenging, and then you have people that want to beat those times and to do those things together, then it gets everyone together being like, all right, how long can we hold this split squat lunge for? And that is where I believe the biggest return on investment is for exercises like that, because having that community and having that intent to beat the person next to you just will ramp up the results, and that bleeds into everything. That bleeds into the 5-10-5 competitions we would always do.
Those are so fun.
That would bleed into the 10-yard dash competitions.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan and I have talked about the metrics and tracking them, like wanting to beat whoever it is that was with you, and having those numbers and outputs just drive everybody up like 100%. So that's where the results came from. It wasn't a magic program or anything.
It's just, and it's funny because like you could look back at like the program like on the Google sheet that you have, and it's like, you know, this person had this amount of time. Like you can't drop for that. You like text me that day and be like, oh, like Matt's got this or Luke got this or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, well, they're screwed now. Like now it's my turn. And like every day it was something, and like we would be sit there running 5-10-5s for so long. And like 3 cones and like run 10-yard dash until I got the time I needed. And like that's what helped me even today with like my like physical therapy and like with my patients. It's like I think there's too much of a cap on like the soft like side, like making sure your client or patient doesn't like hurt themselves, or making sure that they don't like make their injury or whatever they're coming in for worse. But I think the flip side of that is also just pushing the limits a little bit more, and I think that's where you get the best results, is by pushing the limits both mentally and physically. And I think that's where at least for where I got started, like that was like my first summer. I was like, wow, like the human body is capable of so much more than just like what you could see at the surface level.
Yeah, talk about the PT side of things, because we've had guests on talking about how physical therapy is more so on the softer side. It's not really pushing the needle forward. It's a lot of ice and rest.
Yeah.
And there's not much to it in terms of progression. It's just making you feel better. And I'm assuming you've had a couple injuries yourself. Talk through about the mental space of that and how to progress after.
Yeah, so I think it's a loaded question, but I think at a baseline, the first phase of any injury, I've had 2 ACLs, 2 very different experiences with it. First one was that the summer after we had first started training, like that spring. That was a patella tendon, and with the patella tendon, it was for me, it was easier. Everyone has a different experience, but I think it was easier for me because I was able to get my quad strength back pretty, like essentially right away. And quad strength, especially in ACL rehab, is like kind of like the golden key. If you get your quad back faster, everything else is easier. Knee straightening, strength, walking, like anything like that is really easy. But with that, like you're going back to your question, physical therapy, I think for me, the way I view it is you got to get buy-in. That's the most important thing. And obviously even for like strength and conditioning, buy-in is really important. But making sure you can get your patient to buy in, you want to make them feel better. But you also have to know that if you're going to be playing a sport, you got to get back to above where you were at, because you got injured for a reason. Whether it's lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, overworking, underworking, whatever it is, you got to get back to where you're at. And to do that, you have to push your body to a further limit. So my scope and what kind of differentiates me from a lot of my peers as well is I have a background in playing the sport. I have a background in going through the rehab, and obviously now I have a background in the school piece. So I kind of use a blend of all of that together in order to make my patients better than they were before. So the way I do that really is I start by getting the buy-in. I want to make them feel good. So physical therapy, physical's in the name. I always like starting with some manual therapy, whether it's like active release technique, whether it's acupuncture. Obviously I'm not certified in that yet, but that's coming soon. Dry needling, which we get certs in as well. Just trying to get the area to calm down first, and then blending that in with the ISOs. I always like starting with an isometric too, just to get that mind-muscle connection. That's super important, especially for me in ACL rehab. And then that's where we start kind of building the armor, and then getting to the athletic performance piece, and then hopefully getting back to return to sport. One huge gap right now that I've seen, bridge it. But actually, no, I'm serious. Like we actually do have to bridge the gap between athletic performance and physical therapy, because physical therapy, I think, is definitely a developing field. But at the same time, it's also viewed in a negative connotation because, you have insurance making sure that, like, telling you, oh, you can't do this with this patient, or, you're only limited to, 30 minutes per session. That's why cash-based sessions are getting really popular nowadays, because I would never be able to working like this physical therapy mill that people go through, because they're seeing 4 patients a day or 4 patients every hour. So you get 15 minutes with your physical therapist. They rub your quad, they hand you a whiteboard. It's like, all right, like, go on your own. With me, I've been lucky enough to have really good sports med doctors, physical therapists that have had hour-plus care every, 2 times, 3 times a week. And then on top of like a home exercise program where I could just go lift like 2 days a week or whatever it is. What I'm trying to get at is, because ACL is so different. Every single ACL, every surgeon has a different technique. Everyone has a different approach to how they rehab. There's like some surgeons in Connecticut that don't even allow like long arc quads for like loaded under for the first 3-4 months, which I think is ridiculous, because they're like, oh, it's too much shearing force. But I mean, shearing force, I'm gonna be running, a 40-yard dash, and then I have to go play lacrosse where I got 3 guys coming at me, and I have to I'm running full speed, and I got to break down, be able to split dodge, go the other way. How much shearing force is that? So if you're not exposing your body to that, then there's no chance that you're going to be back to where you were or better than where you were before the injury.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of parallels here about your ACL and then my experience with Tommy John.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've had Tommy John surgery, and then now I've also had bone spur removal a couple months ago. So that was like my second elbow surgery. Not as invasive and not as major, but what I'm noticing too with you is, like, you're talking about how it's really just a super, super slow progression, and a lot of times the physical therapists are not progressing you beyond the point of return. And I think that is something super common with Tommy John surgery as well, is the first 3 months you're really progressing just from being cut open and rehabbing to then being able to do household activities and so on and so forth without pain and without discomfort, getting full range of motion. But the real rehab starts when you start throwing again.
Right.
And then by that point, you're not even in physical therapy anymore, because you're already discharged.
Yeah.
And then, I just see the same thing all the time too, where, like, even for me, my most recent one was like, day after surgery, I'm out of the cast, I'm moving around again, and within a month, I'm benching 265. But I'm still not really able to, like, throw or power clean or do the things that I got hurt doing in the first place. So then when it goes from bridging the gap between being able to do just household activities and weightlifting compared to actually going to do my high velocity sport again, I was pretty much on my own for that.
Right.
So talk about the field and how, you're talking about, like, the cash basis physical therapy. How does that help that process where you're actually returning to the sport?
Yeah, so that's great, because I'm actually glad you brought that up. I actually explain to my patients that when you're going through an ACL rehab, it's 2 completely different rehabs. Your first rehab, like you had mentioned, is the calm down phase. So you might make sure you got full range of motion. You want to make sure that you're able to walk around with a normal gait pattern. You want to make sure you're able to do, like, everyday tasks. You want to make sure you're squatting, like, really any just basic kind of movement. And that is really from the first literally day 1 all the way to like 6 months ish. Again, it depends on what kind of surgery you have. I had my quad tendon just last year, and I literally just started sprinting just because I took forever to get my quad going. Quad tendonitis is a real thing, especially when you take a quad tendon, kind of in that mid rehab stage. This has been a year. My patella tendon has been 7 months. Obviously 2 surgeries, that plays a little bit of a factor into it as well. But like I had mentioned, I explained to my patients that ACL rehab is not just a knee injury. It's actually a nerve injury. It's a brain injury, it turns out to be. So the graft is fully healed really around 6 or 7 months after brain rot. It's actually healed at like 6 or 7 months post-op. So at that point, when your graft is fully healed, then it's time to really start moving into the change of direction, your athletic performance piece of rehab. And with a mill type of physical, I call them mills. It's just people that just pump out patients because they want to get that check from insurance. But with a cash-based approach, is something that I've exclusively done my physical therapy at. I like it because it's a one-on-one. and you get an hour plus with that physical therapist. So they're able to watch you really from your first day when you're at your lowest. Obviously, you just got cut open, you missed your season, whatever it is, and you could build someone up to beyond where they were before their injury. And they're able to do this because they have so much time with you, and they have if you're a facility that has like the turf, we have force plates, we have like a lot of BFR, we have a lot of modalities that we're able to use in order to reach the goals for the client best, which you just don't get at like a normal physical therapy. Like your common like big brand that has hundreds of facilities and like over literally the whole Northeast. And I've done a lot of my clinical work there, and I keep comparing it to like, wow, like this is ridiculous that they give their patient that 7 months ACL. They're not seeing their surgeon anymore, which I think is ridiculous too. I still see my surgeon. I'm at 13 months now, or just about 13 months now, and I'm seeing my surgeon every 3 months because he cares about his outcomes for his patients. So that should not differ from a physical therapist. We have to care about our outcomes for our patients, and a lot of these guys just don't care because, one, they're overworked. They're seeing 4 patients every hour is absolutely ridiculous. You can't get anything done in that time. So I like taking the approach of less patients per day, but really kind of dialing in and perfecting a program for that patient, because every ACL rehab is different. Every shoulder rehab, every elbow rehab is different. And you really aren't able to learn how your patient moves or who your patient is if you're only spending 15 minutes with them a day. So it's nice to know that, obviously I'm at a young age and still in physical therapy school, but it's nice to know what I want because I've been through that before. And for me, like I'm still in physical therapy because I'm in like a cash-based type of program. And I know that I wouldn't be nearly where I am. I'm hardly even cleared right now. I've been this far. But it's nice to also have a coach like you, Brett, with my first ACL. I was back with you at probably 6 months of ACL rehab, and I was jumping, sprinting, and we had a really good environment with like the group training. Everyone was pushing each other. And that's super important for an athlete to be exposed to. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like, how can I get everything out of my patient from a physical therapy, from like a checklist, like making sure that they're able to, left to right for isometric and isokinetic strengthening. But how do I also make sure that I could keep them in the same spot and expose them to an environment that they're going to be exposed to when they go back to college, like their college weightlifting sessions like that. So I think that, the next problem for me to solve is I know how I want to structure my sessions, but now how do I keep them kind of in my circle and make sure that they're truly actually ready to go back to sport.
You said something very interesting I want you to elaborate on, that you said the ACL isn't so much the physical after the 6 months, but then it becomes a mental battle. And I watched a video where the surgeon right after surgery is moving the leg like all over the place. And I had that experience myself after my hip. I was so mentally afraid to move it. Mm-hmm. And then when I go to the surgeon 4 weeks later, I was like scared. Mm-hmm. Mentally, I was like, I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to make it worse. And then I go there and he's ripping it back and forth because he's the one that did all the work. He knows he knows like what's up with the hip. But that right there, him being able to do that took the guards off my brain and being like, oh, I can actually train it now.
Right.
And I was so afraid of like everything, but then now I'm like, oh, it's not fragile. It hurts. Mm-hmm. It's not 100%, but I'm not going to die. Like my hip's not going to just fall off.
No, it's not just fall apart.
Yeah, but your brain doesn't think that way though.
Nope.
Especially off the start. How do you get someone to it's almost a little bit easier to get them physically ready, but from the mental side, how do you get them to trust that it is back to baseline and it's good to go?
You gotta show them that they're capable of it. And that's gonna look different for every patient. It's gonna look different for every person. That's even gonna look different for every physical therapist. I know a lot of young physical therapists who are afraid that they're gonna hurt somebody. And I think the way I lay it out for my patients is I have a green, yellow, and red zone. So green means go. If they're in a 0 to 3 pain range, then we're going, and we're going hard, because every athlete's going to be in pain, whether you're injured or not injured. Every athlete's got some sort of injury, but we have to know where our limits are, and I think we have to show our patients that, listen, you got cut open, you were asleep, you have no clue what's going on during that surgery. You have a lot of swelling, whatever, so on and so forth. But what I'm trying to get at is now you have to prove to your patient that they're capable of more than they believe. And the way you do that is progressive overload and making sure that they feel comfortable moving their body. And something that I've been doing a lot in my own rehab is I got to prove to myself that, this is my second ACL surgery. I have to prove that I'm good to go. And we have a couple markers, like making sure that we're not swelling up too much, because that knows your body swells for a reason. And like, if you're swelling up, your joint's not ready. Maybe it's not strong enough. Maybe it hasn't been exposed to that movement enough. So you gradually expose that athlete to that movement. So right now, like, I'm going a lot of change of direction is kind of the goal right now, because I haven't been able to go straight line speed yet. So we've been doing a lot of force absorption and then making sure we could absorb that force and then have a better output with it. And over time, if you show your athlete and you expose your athlete to different movements, maybe they're afraid, maybe they're like, you're fear avoiding because, they went into a little bit too much valgus and that's how they tore their ACL. So exposing that athlete to a little bit of valgus, whether that's training it in different joint angles, and then kind of building a movement based off of that joint angle. So, like, for example, we were doing step-ups with different joint angles. So externally rotating, internally rotating, doing step-ups, and then from there, doing, like, overcoming isos from weird joint angles. Because in athletics, like, it's not perfect. And I know you love that that example of, like, the Russell Westbrook dunking and landing, like, on one leg with his out of his base of support and everything like that. But that's real, and that's like what sport is. No one's gonna land, like, I'm not gonna be jumping for a ball in lacrosse and land in a perfect snap down. So I think exposing the athletes to different joint angles and then being able to get out from that joint angle is really important. So going from overcoming isos to, like, a weird, like, split stance sprint when you're starting, like, half kneeling or something like that. So I think exposing the athlete is going to help them in the long run trust their body more, and also explore movements too, which I'll dive into with isos more.
I was just laughing because of the overcoming isometric video that we were talking about earlier.
Have you just lifting the bar and hitting the rack every time?
Oh my God.
Yeah, he saw overcoming iso on Instagram and thought he was supposed to rep it out. So he just got, like, kicked out of the gym.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous.
But what I was gonna ask was, you talk about how, like, each doctor has its own technique. And so in the javelin, or not the javelin, in Tommy John surgery,
Very similar.
very similar. So in Tommy John surgery, I'm just going to end up relating everything back to Tommy John because that's my context to it. But, like, for me, I had the pulmonaris longus out of my wrist put into my elbow. Yep. I've had people taking that out of their right wrist and put into their right elbow. Yep. I've had people, they take it out of their left arm and put it in their right elbow. I've had people use a cadaver, which is a deceased person. I've had people use their hamstring tendon and put it into their elbow. So what are some of the different ways that you do it, that you could repair it, the ACL, with, do you guys use cadavers? Is it always the same hamstring, or, like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so 3 most common: patella tendon, quad tendon, hamstring tendon. Typically it's gonna be on the same leg because it just makes the rehab, I'm gonna use the word easier. No, nothing in rehab is very easy. But it's all on one leg, so you're kind of killing 2 birds with one stone rather than taking, it happens plenty of times where they take a patella tendon. I was a candidate to do another patella tendon on my right leg because I had already taken patella tendon from my left. But those are the 3 really that you're going to see the most often. There's a new protocol called the Bear protocol where it's essentially a repair of the ACL instead of a removal. So you're not taking a graft. You're kind of pretty much closing 2 ends and letting that heal on its own, which is new research on it, but there hasn't been great not that there haven't been great outcomes, but we just need to see that happen a little bit more. Something that's interesting that I ended up getting for my second surgery, it's called a lateral extratenodesis. So what it is they take a small piece of your IT band and they reroute it to Gertie's tubercle, which is on the outside of your knee. So it's like essentially acts as a new ligament, like a man-made new ligament. So it's supposed to support you laterally a little bit more. Obviously, in theory, that works better than perhaps in game because no matter how many extra ligaments you got on the outside, if you get hit directly on the knee, then there's nothing you can do to really stop that. But that is also a new technique they've been using, and that's actually giving me a little bit more issues right now. Outcomes have been really, really good according to the research with lateral extratendidiasis, because it makes the athlete have a better peace of mind. Like, I got a big scar on the whole outside. Give them a little bit more peace of mind that, like, all right, if I'm going into valgus, like, I'm not going to be. In theory, I'm a little bit stronger than I actually am. But I want to touch back on the brain injury piece. There's a guy, his name is David Sherman, works out of Northeastern, and he's been doing a lot of research with high-level athletes post like surgery after a knee injury. And his theory is he'll go into your brain, he'll take a live MRI, and he essentially shoots like little lasers, essentially, into your premotor and primary motor cortex, and he's able to track from your brain the nerves that control like leg extension or knee flexion or anything like that. And his whole theory is that, like I had mentioned, that a knee injury post-surgery after 6 months, your graft is fully healed. So in theory, you should be 1,000% good to go. The nerves in your brain that control your knee essentially turn off and are guarded because of the pain, because of the trauma you're getting cut by a surgeon. So these nerve endings are kind of getting frayed a little bit. So they turn off. So his whole theory now is that if we're able to go into your brain, we turn these nerves back on. In theory, you should be able to have the same outputs that you're having before. So it was very interesting for me. I ended up participating in a study, and he was tracking the excitability of the nervous system in my left leg compared to my right leg, and how much voluntary output I was able to produce from my left leg to my right leg, and how fast the nerves were reacting to that. So you have two pathways, well, plenty more than two pathways, but you have a pathway coming from your knee, in this case would be the femoral nerve, and then you also have from your knee up to like your spinal tract. And what he's seen with a lot of these athletes is that his knee is plenty capable of producing force, of returning back to sport in full capacity, but his nerves, they're not allowing the brain to do that because it's scared, or it's protecting the knee because of a lot of trauma that happens. So he measures the excitability of these nerves, and he wants to start intervening from the brain. So putting a little bit of a higher shock into the brain and waking up the nerves, essentially, is what that's doing. So you see that a lot at a lower level, like with e-stim or with like dry needling into e-stim, but this guy Dave is taking it up a notch, and it's actually a super cool concept. It's called neuromuscular inhibition, and it's something that I don't know so much about yet because I literally just took part in the study a few weeks ago, but I'm really excited to see the outcomes that he gets with this stuff, because this is like game changing for any kind of athlete. Yeah.
We've had a couple guests on the show using like the Volta,
yep,
or the ARP Wave.
Yeah.
Is there anything similar to what you're saying there? And
yeah, I think the theories are all the same. It's allowing your body to say like, hey, this movement's okay. And he's got a machine, it's called a NUX. It's pretty much the same thing. That it's e-stim on steroids, and it's just trying to get your body to fire that nervous system back up again and be able to fully function at a high capacity, because that's what you need to return back to sport. And you could, you have no swelling, you could have all the isometric strength in the world, but if you don't have the isokinetic strength, or if you don't have the strength or confidence to activate that, and that might not even be your fault, like it's your brain protecting that. It's just treating the central nervous system at that point. And that's why I tell my patients, like, it's a completely different rehab. Like your first 1 to 3 months looks completely different than your first, your next 9 to 12 and beyond. I think you need physical therapy, or need is a physical therapy, maybe not, but you need to be training in season, especially after a big injury like that, because like you got hurt for a reason. Maybe if it's contact injury, maybe not, but if it's a non-contact injury, there's a reason why you got hurt. Not saying that those injuries are preventable, which I don't really know if they are, but there is a reason why this happened. So I think trying to do something different from your injuries, I think, and learn from them is the most important piece. And for me has been the most helpful is just learning from injuries. Obviously 2 ACLs, obviously I'm not doing something right, So finding a way to tweak and adjust a little bit and find how, all right, like this happened for a reason. How can I fix it for next time? And how could I, leave better than I was before?
With those non-contacts, I think we're seeing a pretty much rise in them, especially in the NBA and the NFL. And there's a bunch of different theories and as to why. And I'm curious to hear your take. Is like, how are the best athletes in the world experiencing these non-contact injuries when the science is evolving, the players are evolving, everything seems to be trending up, but the injuries are still relatively the same?
Big question, because I think at one hand, these athletes are getting so good, and maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe these athletes are just so, like, they're genetic freaks, and maybe that their body literally just can't handle the force that they're producing with the amount of time that they're producing at. I think fatigue, in the studies at least, have been the biggest contributing factor. So that's like sleep, overworking. Like a lot of these guys are playing, 2 games back to backs. Like, it's hard to say for certain, but injuries have not been on the decline at all, and athletic performance has certainly been on the incline. So is there a correlation there? Maybe, but there's just so many factors in sport that can lead to an injury that I don't love the whole idea of like injury prevention. And like, I'm going to go back to those snap downs again. It's like, you could do as many snap downs as you want. And like, that's like the first progression I understand of like getting back into force absorption and loading your joints and everything like that. But at the same time, it's like, should that be the building block? Because no one's going to land like that. And no one even thinks about landing like that. Like, there's so much happening, especially in a basketball game where people are jumping off one leg, people are jumping out of their support, people are jumping, getting hit, people are jumping before they get hit. So it's an impossible sport to pre-plan. And I think exposing your body to different stimulus is going to be the better way, in my opinion, to prepare for that, because it's not pre-planned. So I think injuries in general are it's a loaded topic, because like you could talk for hours. It's like, oh, well, don't drink any alcohol, eat a perfect diet, get all of your sleep. In theory you could say all that, but
and then you got James Harden going to nightclubs.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, just about to say that. It's like, so you could have someone that has everything so perfectly dialed in, but then, they take one wrong step, they slip on, some sweat on the court, and that's it. Like, ACL is gone. And then you could also have someone, like, to your point, like Harden or like Bartolo Colon in baseball, who just like very clearly don't care about their diet and either never get hurt or, they could have a contact injury. So I think there's a lot of work to do in the sports performance world, of just patient education. But at the same time, just realizing that you're playing at the highest level, like, stuff's going to happen. So,
yeah, I mean, I love the quote. Yeah, I'm sure you knew this quote was coming, but when your skill,
it's humanly possible.
No, not that quote. The other quote, I got like 3 that I have in my back pocket at all times. But no, in terms of injuries, like when your skill level exceeds your level of physical preparedness, that is when injuries happen. And the way you were just talking, and it made me just think and have the gears turn a little bit, that you're saying these athletes are getting very skillful. Mm-hmm. But the training is a little bit on the softer side, because when you're working with someone that is worth so much money, as the trainer, you don't want to mess that up. Right. I mean, we've seen LeBron squats. I mean, in his sumo deadlifts, like he's sumo deadlifting the big whites. Those are 5 pounds each. Like the technique is whatever. But LeBron has been the best longevity athlete across all sports. Yeah. Like no matter what sport has ever done what he's done from a longevity standpoint.
It's ridiculous.
But is that genetic? Is it just a skill? Does he know how to pace himself?
Yeah.
Because like he also had that stat. We had the best pace out of any NBA player, where his average miles per hour is 2 2.7 miles per hour he was running. So people call him lazy, but he's able to do what he has to do and know when to turn it
41 years old, and he dropped 30 the other night and a triple-double last night. So it's like it's a weird kind of in-between because you said that they don't want to mess up these guys. From my point of view, I think they are messing up these guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
because they view, because the functional training took off for like a decade almost, and that was the big realm of we're only going to do power-off holds with the lightest bands. We're only going to do unilateral training. We're only going to do reverse sled drags for knee pain. Like we're only going to stretch and be mobile. And when you're working with dudes worth millions of dollars, you're going to look at every exercise from a risk to reward ratio. And a lot of these guys might not even like to work out. Yeah. But then you look back at the early 2000s when it was just like crush weights and get after it. I don't know. But they were also probably blasting, and then the drug regulations have gotten a little bit stricter.
Yeah.
So it's a fun topic to dive in on because there's so many different possibilities as to why.
And there's a time and place for everything too, I think. And it's a slippery slope because you want to, as a trainer and as a sports med like doctor, you want to be able to have your best outcomes with your athletes, whether that's in rehab or that's on the field or a mixture of both. And I think that's where physical therapy right now is lacking, is they're so careful with some of these athletes. And I think that hurts them in the long run by being so careful, because whether you're consciously thinking about it or not, you're going to be guarded a little bit. So I think making sure that athlete feels so comfortable, and insurance is a huge issue right now because some people are only getting 8 sessions of physical therapy before they have to you have to do a reeval and to get them back for, more physical therapy sessions, and argue with insurance to like prove the reasoning why. Like there's so the form right now I'm doing is an LEFS form, which is like a lower extremity functional scoring system. And that's what the insurance companies decide whether this person should have physical therapy or not. So it's literally like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like how comfortable do you feel walking a mile? Or like how comfortable do you feel squatting down to pick up a slipper? And like that is what insurance is telling, not in my case, I'm cash based, but like is telling athletes like me who have gone through ACL. It's like, oh, well, you scored a whatever on your LEFS form because you feel fine walking a mile. And it's like, wow, that's awesome. But this guy can't cut full speed yet, and he's got, he's on a scholarship to play football. And so, like, why is that the correlation? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a huge issue, just in our field in general. And that bleeds over to sports performance and strength and conditioning too, because now they get kicked out of physical therapy at, like you said, 6 months or whatever it is, and they might not even physically be ready for that sports performance yet, that throwing piece yet, just because of how their body handles it. Maybe if they don't have the range of motion, they're a little bit slow getting something like that back. And now these kids are screwed, and like, who knows what happens with scholarships and with coaching and things like that, because obviously there's a lot of pressure for them to get back from the injury. They're on scholarship. The school invests into them, but they're not prepared and they're not ready for it. So just trying to find a way to carefully expose your athletes into certain movement patterns while also making sure that, the graft is going to be fine, for example.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you've been saying about the graft is really interesting, because the way that I've learned it is that essentially when you look at the return to throw protocol and in the elbow with the graft, it's that like you have the micro and the macro picture. Okay. And so like on the micro picture, you're trying to apply stress to the ligament and then let it rest and recover. And you'll do that on a daily basis where you throw and then you take a day off, and then you throw and you take a day off. But then you also have periods where a week you're throwing and then you're taking 2 weeks off of rest. And then each time you repeat that cycle, you're increasing the weight or the intensity of the implement that you're throwing. So you have this system that you're applying stress to the graft and then you're resting so that it can continue to get stronger, because if you don't apply enough stress to the graft, then it will never get to the point where you can throw full speed again. So is that the same for ACL, and then how do you progress it?
Yeah, a little bit different because your leg's a weight bearing joint, so you're stressing that like every day when you're walking. So when your ACL is taut when it's in extension, your PCL is taut when you're in flexion. Obviously, you're going to be in extension if you're walking a little bit more than you're in flexion. So the loading is a little bit different in that sense because it is weight bearing and you're using your legs a lot. Not saying that you don't use your arms a lot, but your arm, you have to expose your arm to that movement in a different way than you'd expose your ACL. So it's kind of like a curve because you're going to be, you get this new healthy tissue, whether it's from your quad tendon or patella tendon, whatever it is, it's going to die off, and then it slowly, gradually will get to that stronger point. You expose that by your degrees of freedom and how much range of motion that you're able to get. So loading that, loading your joint and extension, I think is really important for ACL because it's hardest to get your extension. It's much easier to get flexion back because you could go against gravity with that. It's much harder to get your extension back, especially with a quad tendon because your quads are your knee extensors. So if you're taking a piece from your quad, it's going to be weaker just automatically because you just got your quad cut open and something removed from it. So trying to do just and this is where the cookie cutter stuff comes into play, and we could dive into the cookie cutter programs, which I think are a little bit ridiculous, but making sure you're literally just doing your quad squeezes, your ankle pops. Something that I found very useful for a progression piece is taking a big, like a huge band, pulling your knee into extension, and then just letting that band go and trying to do like an isometric hold. Because now that's exposing, you get a little bit of assistance getting to that terminal extension, and then you could start doing an iso from there and trying to keep, you give yourself a visual, keep that heel popped up. And you progress that by doing short arc quads, long arc quads, and then just starting to get into absolute like terminal knee extensions with whether that's, doing a squat, or anything of that nature. But it's lower body is a super interesting for me, like my most interesting because I've been through it, but finding different ways to load that joint, especially early on in rehab, because I think the first 2 months of rehab are the most important as a foundational piece, more so than like your middle stage rehab. Everyone's going to get stronger no matter what you do. Like you expose yourself to something enough, you're going to get results from it. Like we know that, like if you run a 3-cone enough times, you're going to get really good at it. So I think the first stage of rehab and then like that end stage return to sport rehab are the most important rather than like that middle stage. Obviously, every part of rehab is important, but I think the
mundane middle.
What'd you say?
The mundane middle. That's where I'm at right now.
It's the worst part.
Well, because
it's the worst part.
I'm actually the opposite right now, where I could get extension fine. Like I could overhead press.
Flexion.
I could get overhead press 225, no problem. But it's like I still can't touch my shoulder here because that, if you see in the back here, that scar right there at the tricep was where the biggest bone spur was, and I'm like 4 months out now, and I still can't touch it. So I'm like, I probably have to go get it worked on, dry needled, get that massage, because after the initial 6 weeks, like where I was doing the strengthening and the super linear progression of getting more movement, I've gotten a lot stronger. Like I benched 255 for 9.9 the other day. so I'm definitely like I'm basically upper body strength is there. It's just that it's like that front squat position I wouldn't be able to get into. My next follow-up question was, so in Tommy John surgery, we see that athletes that have a very aggressive trail leg flexion are more likely and more susceptible to having a second Tommy John surgery because their knee is pulling in on their back leg rather than getting the donkey kick follow through. And what happens is basically that's causing you to muscle up. So when your back leg is ripping through, you're losing ground force contact from the power position, so you're not using the kinetic chain effectively. So anyway, it's a very big technical issue of why you would be more susceptible to having a second Tommy John surgery. Do you see any...
The same in baseball too, by the way.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Do you see a correlation with second ACL tears, like yourself or anyone else? Like, is there a certain movement pattern that is more susceptible?
So I think in general for me, no, because my second one was a contact. I had no chance surviving that one. But I think in general, it's an interesting question because it could stem from someone being discharged too early, returning to sport a little bit too early, because of.
I had a girl in high school that did that
a little early.
Yeah, she was like cleared after 9 months of soccer and came back to it right away, and first game back tore her ACL again.
Right, so that something tells me in that case that something's not, and who knows what that's from, right? Like that could be from poor programming. That could be from maybe the athlete kind of rushing it back a little bit. It could also just be from like having no access to physical therapy. And whether that's, I think choosing your physical therapy place is such an important piece of rehab. And I'm not saying like I have no clue who it is or anything like that, but at the same point, it's like if she only has 20, 30 minutes with her physical therapist a week, like, how many other hours in the day are you doing stuff on your own or maybe doing something that you shouldn't be doing, or just not even having like I keep going back to insurance, but it's such a big thing. It's like maybe you don't have the insurance to go to physical therapy, and then you're on your own. You have exactly. So in your case, like you have a pretty good, you found a nice program, it's very good.
Shout out David Gray.
Yeah,
I mean,
legend.
I've been shouting him out every time because
but it's for you deserve. He deserves it. Yeah,
David Gray, friend of the show.
Yeah, you got to get him on here, but but no, that's really important, and to have someone that is able to articulate a program online it's huge. It's really huge, but not many people know about that. And I think there's a time and place for everything, and it's also nice to be able to know like it is possible to do physical therapy remote. I personally, I don't think I'm there yet. I haven't even graduated yet fully. But having a program that's so reliable, and then obviously like with your knowledge, just how to build back up and return to sport and everything like that is really important. And that's where physical therapy lacks so much, because if you have someone that's 9 months ACL, like they go back to sport and the first game back, you're tearing your ACL. Like sure, it's terrible and it's unlucky, but at the same time, like your body wasn't ready for it. And I don't know what piece of the body wasn't ready for that. I wasn't the one doing the rehab for that. But that's why I'm taking so much time with this. It's like, yeah, I'm being careful, and I wish I wasn't being so careful. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to go through a third ACL, and I want to make sure I'm doing everything in the right way,
I was going to say, when you were like, I wasn't the one doing the rehab, and I was like, yeah, well, you were 13 at the time. But are you still playing?
Yeah. Well, not right now, but obviously, yeah, I'm still playing.
So just for like the national team or what?
Yeah. So we have some Olympic stuff coming up, qualifiers in the summer, and hopefully to be ready for that. But I got to start sprinting, making sure I'm ready to go back to that. The goal was to be back around now. My quad took a little bit to get back, and it's also just like my second surgery in 3 years, which is ridiculous. But just making sure that I'm fully ready to go. My strength left to right is literally at 100%, but isokinetically I'm lacking a little bit, probably because I've been exposed to moving, like changing directions super well right now, just because I keep swelling up, and I don't know why I'm swelling up. We're trying to get to the bottom of that right now, but I think maybe just because of like a lack of exposure and making sure I could just. So we've been exploring with some movement in the last couple of weeks, so it's been fun.
So. We're about 50 minutes in now. I just want to ask Brett, did you learn anything about him yet?
Learning a lot more about him today. That's good. I actually know a little bit about what he knows. That's good. But a note I wanted to make about PT is because as coaches, as physical therapists, as trainers, we're always going to care a lot about the process and having the athlete get back to baseline, not only from just a business model sense that it looks good, look, we got them there, but from like a human holistic standpoint, like we got you back to where you are so you can go and do what you want to do.
Right.
I want to make a note for athletes out there listening. We care a lot. You should care more.
Yes.
You have to care more. You have to care more about your process and your rehab and how you approach your daily activities in this process. That is something I've learned the most about. I mean, I'm not talking with David Gray directly. I bought his program. Anyone could buy his program. I'm following it 3 times a week. I am making it a priority to get back to where I need to be, plus educating myself on the process of how to rehab after a hip surgery. Important. Like, I am going to take that initiative to learn and to understand my body and what feels good. And I am telling myself what is green, yellow, and red light. It is very important as an athlete, as you develop through your progressions in your career, that you need to become your own physical therapist, your own strength coach, your own skills coach. Like, you need to be the best coach for yourself, and also to have someone to bounce ideas off of and make it more of a collaborative effort. I never want it to be a sense of, I'm going to put all my faith in you and you fix me, because then it's not as there's no back and forth. I mean, the best clients I have are the ones that bounce ideas off of me. Hey, can we try this? Can we do this? Well, how does this feel? It's much more collaborative. And with you being an athlete, with also going to be a PT, having your PT be a little bit more collaborative and talking and bouncing back and forth, that's huge. And that's what athletes need to do, because you can't just blindly trust somebody that I'm going to go back and be 100%, because you weren't in tune with it. The intentionality wasn't there, because you just put all your faith into this one person, where they might not have 100% all the answers at the right time. Like, you need to have some type of autonomy with that as well.
Well, yeah, that's good that you bring it up, because in a perfect world, I'm seeing a patient. This is a perfect world, never happens. I'm seeing a patient 3 times a week for 1 hour. That's in a perfect world. So that's 3 hours out of, I don't even know how many hours in a week.
A lot.
Yeah. So I am a minuscule portion of this person's week, month, and I can't hold your hand through everything. And as much as I would like to, it's not possible. So it's just realizing how your body reacts to certain things, understanding how your body works, just really from like a top-down approach. Like, I know for me, this is going to sound really weird, but I've noticed for me, I feel terrible when I eat like something like pizza or like something fried or with a lot of fat or anything like that. My knees start swelling up. And
sodium.
Yeah. So it's a frustrating piece, but it's also like, all right, oh well, I can't have the KFC or whatever. Like, that sucks. But at the same time, I want to feel better.
You can't have the athlete diet anymore. You actually got to eat like a,
I know,
like a fitness gym bro.
I know. But little things like that are so important. It's like making sure I get my sleep. Like, people are telling me to hop on the game, and I'm like, man, I gotta go to bed, because like I don't.
Why are you capping for the pod? You know you'd be on that game.
Nah, I'd be on it. But I go to bed early. But no, I'm serious. Like, little things like that. It's so important in rehab, and it's sometimes the last thing that people think of. And because we can't be there holding their hands, that's on us to educate our patient. Like, hey, I understand, like, when you get hurt, you're missing out on a lot of things. You're missing out on a social aspect. You're missing out on a competitive aspect. You're missing out sometimes from like a education aspect. So there's a lot of components that go into injury, more so than just, ow, my knee hurts. And you, as in my my field, it's my job to be there for the patient, because sometimes, parents haven't been through some of these injuries like that. Maybe some teammates haven't been through, and like with javelin and track and field, like, it's a pretty small team. So the likelihood of someone going through like that, maybe not as high as something like football. But just being an outlet for your patient, I think, is super important from an education aspect, as well as like a supportive aspect. So I think if you're giving your patient something that is, worth working for and showing that you care, I think that also helps the patient care a little bit more as well. What was that?
Are you good? It's my camera. We got the wide shot.
But yeah, I think from that point of view, it's oh my god. But no, that's a really good piece though, because that's something that not a lot of people think of. It's, I can't be there to hold your hand the entire time. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's gonna be on top of my forehead.
No, it's time's almost up. We dispel of all of our podcast guests after. No, but I made a post a couple of years ago about like what the whole goal of the coach is.
Yeah.
And the whole goal of the coach is to eliminate the coach. So I want to get from a point of being your coach and holding your hand and guiding you to where we can get to a collaborative effort.
Yes.
So we can talk and chop it up and you bounce ideas. I've educated you enough where you can have better questions, because when you have someone that's just starting off, their questions are going to be terrible.
Right.
Because they just have, you know this.
Yeah.
Like just from, like this is your second ACL surgery, I'm sure you have much better questions now than you did the first time.
Certainly.
And then when you strength train, you go through sprint training, like the worst question is why was that rep slower? Yeah. I was like, you're the one that ran it, bro. I don't know.
Yeah, like you're the one that knows what you're feeling, or
they don't have the feel though.
Yeah.
They have no idea what the context is. At the gym that I'm helping out at and working out of now, in 3 weeks, every single athlete has dropped their time significantly because they just never time their sprints. Yesterday, there's these 2 girls that just don't try, or like they think they're running fast, but they're not. And, like, I could see it, but I can't just tell them to try harder. So what I did is before we put the timing gates out, we raced.
Yes, good.
We did some type of race, and then we put the timing gates out. They ran 0.2 seconds faster.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy, but it's because they actually like had some type of input of like, oh, I got to actually try.
Did you time them while they're chasing each other?
No, I did those. I do those as primers.
That's good.
I do them as like some type of sprinting event to prime them up to actually have them try. And it's once you see that, then it's easy to replicate because you actually have that feeling of this is what max speed is.
Yes.
And if you don't know what that is, you're always going to be at your perceivable max speed, but that could be 60%.
Yeah.
Like you don't know.
You don't know.
But I can't be the one to tell you that. I can help facilitate an environment to make you feel that. But at the end of the day, that is your times.
You're not the one running.
I'm not the one sprinting.
Yeah.
Coach, why was that one slower? Like, you tell me.
Yeah, I didn't
you tell
run
me
it.
why.
Yeah.
What did you feel?
Right.
I ask that question 100 times
That's
every
a great
session.
question.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you feel? Like,
Yeah.
why was that slower? Like, did you pop straight up? Did you just not try? They go halfway through the sprint. Oh, that was so slow, and they stop running. And they have that happen all the time. But that's what I want people to get into. Like they need to care more, and that's what I try to instill is like that intellectual piece of understanding what it is that they're doing, what they're feeling,
Such
and
an important piece.
the output of what it is that's a result of that.
Yeah, I think it's also going through like school now. It's also like a development piece that we don't see. Like it comes from people that are 2-3 years old. Right now I'm in a pediatric class, and it's talking about how important like weight bearing is in development. So even if like you have a small leg length discrepancy, it actually affects their entire kinetic chain.
Seabiscuit.
No, like it's seriously like
Yeah.
it's actually like a real thing because weight bearing is so important as a toddler. Crawling is so like body exploration is so important, even from an age before we'll ever see an athlete. And there's like a lot of research on like how weight bearing affects bone development. Right now, we actually just read a study that like moderate to high intensity in older adults with OA like has been nearly reversing OA because just the way that works. And I think from a developmental point of view this is why training is so important at an early age, because these kids, if you expose them to different movements, they're going to find themselves within their body. Like that's how we learn how to walk. Like you fail until you don't anymore. And I think taking that principle into training and into physical therapy is like forcing your body to fail and forcing your body to learn has had really profound results for these athletes. And I try to stick to like fail 25% of the time. I think it's a good thing. I think failing is a good thing because you're not going to know what you're capable of until you do it, right? Like I know that's like one of your favorite quotes. If it's what is it? If it's humanly
possible, no, you can do it.
You
too.
can do it.
It's
Yeah.
an iteration of Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. So that's a real thing. And it's interesting to explain to your patients like, hey, I don't know if you can do this, but we're going to try it. And as long as it doesn't hurt, then we're going to do it. Like we're going to fail because you need to be exposed to something like that. You're going to lose games. You're going to fail. It's how you learn from it is what's more important to me. And that's been kind of like the most growth that I've seen in the past couple of months. It's just like, I'm just going to do it, and I'm probably not going to do well at it, but eventually I'll get good at it.
So you're telling me I should just go sprint tomorrow?
No.
See how it feels?
No. I'm not saying that.
What if it's yellow light?
No, not yet.
No, I understand. That's one of the biggest struggles is to keep it back.
Yeah.
But we are out of time. Mike, it was a pleasure talking to you and actually getting to know you as a intellectual, more so just a video game partner and a training partner. Tell anyone about where they can find you if you have any things in the works.
MJD819 on Instagram. That's what I got in the works right now.
You're gonna start posting?
Just give me on the school too, Mike Delaney on the school.
Free school.
Yeah. But it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate it, brother.
Fun.
Thanks for tuning in.
And if you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star rating and review and share the show, because the only way that this show grows is if you like it, share it, and tell your friends and family about it.
New episode every Monday.